Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to all of us.
And again,
Delish.
thank you to Brava and to Rec Professionals for really bringing this all together. You know, I think we're all feeling it at the moment. And we're all anticipating getting back to work. We're all itching to get back to work. But we also know that things are not going to be the same. So, and it's not just us, it's worldwide. So, you know, with hand on heart, I think from both of us, we want to kind of give you all a big hug to begin with, because I think we all need it at this moment in time.
Yes.
A big warm hug from 6 feet away. And we'll get started on the today's kind of session. You remember John's mannequin from last week in Color Technique. So this is her just air dried from last week. And again, the beautiful lights that he put all the way around, and the dimension that that created inside, which I think, you know, really speaks volumes for the small amount of foils that are really placed in there. And again, it's looking at ways now that we can maximize color and cutting, and maybe speed up the process of not having that person in the seat for too long, even though there's going to be a lot of catching up, I know, for our clients and for ourselves. But what I wanted to share before I start cutting this, before I start wetting her and cutting her, is showing you a little bit of the styling technique that I would use to finish off, because rather than sitting there and watching me blow dry her, which is like watching paint dry for a hairdresser, it's not exciting. I kind of figured I'll show you a couple of the techniques that I would use with the iron to put some curl in her hair, even though the haircut can be worn straight and you know, blow dried or flat ironed, whichever your preference is. Again, there's no treatment on the hair at the moment. Regularly, what I would use is something like the flexible spray, to maybe put like a little mist of spray on the hair first. So that's the rough flexible spray. And I'm using out of our CoCre8 irons. And again, John, if you could just zoom in for a minute down here. The iron that I'm using is our conical, which is wider, closer, narrower towards the end. So you have a variety of depth of curl that you're going to create with this. We've also got a large barrel clip, which is about 1 inch, a little smaller again, going through 3/4, through to our spiral curl, and then to our figure 8. So this actually, I mean, this is hot at the moment, that's why I've got the glove on, but you can take this off because this area doesn't get hot, and clip this back on again. So if you want to change out the barrels during a hairset, you can. But what I wanted to share is just kind of like, again, working a little faster rather than taking as long as we have in the past, maybe with styling. And for instance, with this section here, if I want this section to move back away from the face, what I would do is look at where I want that curl to hit, where I want the curve to hit, and start wrapping the hair around from that point. And if I wanted the hair to be a bigger curl, I would just push everything up to the top end. If I wanted it to have a smaller curl on the end, I would pull it further down, just holding it there for a few seconds, and then pulling that out. And you can see a couple of seconds, you've really got a beautiful kind of curl going there. And then what I do like, when people ask for that kind of more beachy kind of look, and again, if you notice here, rather than separating the hair into two and doing the top section and then the underneath section, I'm actually taking a vertical panel about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. It's about 1 inch at the top, about 1.5 inches at the bottom here, wide. Let's just turn her around, babe. What I'm going to do with this one is go a little lower and wind the hair around, going in the opposite direction. Letting that sit for a second, taking that out. Next section that I would go through. And again, this is obviously creating more of the texture towards the mid to the bottom of the hair. If you wanted You could also take out that top section and give root lift to this, but in this case, I'm really kind of working more on just giving a nice kind of wave to the hair and some curl. And if you notice what I'm doing at the top there, I'm just turning that in a bit so we get some root dimension going at this point. Sliding that back down. You can see how nice and fast that is. Again, just going to take my glove up here. What I would do at this point is use maybe something like Stay Smooth, or you could go in with the red oil. You could go in with, you know, a little bit of the pomade if you wanted to, some of the paste if you wanted to break it up, depending on what the hair texture is like. I kind of like adding a little shine to the hair too. So I'm just working that through. You'll see that what happens there is you get this really beautiful kind of movement that follows down. And even though in this point we've got this going in the opposite direction, what's nice from the front of the hair then is you get some dimension. It's not just everything going in one direction, it's going in different directions. So again, working the product through the hair, adding that little bit of polish. You know, from seeing my styling video a couple of weeks ago, you know that I'm a big fan, as well as the shine spray, which, Jess, we're running out of. We need some more. And working that through. And again, just with my fingers, kind of breaking that up and pulling a few pieces out and getting this really nice kind of texture going there. Also, you know, using the right kind of iron on the hair, it will add shine to the hair, it will add some texture. So, you know, if I kind of show you that's on John's color technique, without a haircut, without anything, but that's kind of the way that I would go about styling the hair. So I'm really doing this in reverse. I'm showing you the styling first, and then we'll do the haircut. But just to give you an idea, this would be on the shorter length of how that looks, and I really just use the wide part of the actual conical iron, wound this back, wound that forward, wound this back, wound that forward.
It's so cute.
Yeah,
so cute,
isn't it?
Yeah.
So that was just to kind of give you an idea to begin with. Now we'll actually start weighing the hair down. And Jess, I'm not sure if you noticed this with the mannequins recently, they seem to have like almost like a fur-like texture to them. It's almost like they're adding in yak hair or something to the mannequins rather than it being just 100% human hair. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way. So I think the shortage in hair all over the world, because when you think about it, wigs have become more popular than they actually were in the 60s. Hair extensions, hair pieces have become so popular. And obviously that's all the same hair that gets used on mannequins, just human, you know, human hair. So I think if there's a shortage at the moment, that basically they're kind of adding something to the hair because some of it just doesn't seem kind of real, more like doll hair.
John, really quick, just because we did finish it and maybe we have some people on that weren't on last week, could you real quick, I mean, we know you use decolorizer, Ref's powdered lightener, but do you remember what you tapped in for a alkaline?
Yes. So this is at the end, right? When we did the root tap and then the smudge through.
Yeah.
Yes. So we worked last week. The lift was done with the bleach powder and 9%. That's what we went through in the foil pattern, which is, I think everyone, well, you all have access to that through our CoCre8 Facebook page, as well as our CoCre8.biz. So we even posted the diagram. The root tap is done it was done with the Ref pastels it was graphite and lavender done with 3. And it was I think 30 grams. And I think you use steel and lavender. Steel and lavender? Yes, yes. Steel and lavender. Thank you. Yeah, and it was a ratio of 30 to 10. 10 of the lavender being the lesser than. But we applied it into the full head. We did it more as a damp tap in. So what was nice is it already is slowed down just a little bit, but the steel and the lavender together, it was a perfect shift. And I think one of the questions that came about was about even were we treating it as it wasn't a brunette, but you can see that on the darker canvas, she's actually quite red brown. It just takes the edge off without exposing warmth.
Cools it.
It's
right? And we weren't trying to go for a fashion forward look. We used pastel as the formula that was already, it was already chemically balanced.
I've gone through, just put on top of the water that I used in there, I did a little leave-in conditioner, because I do believe that when you're cutting your hair, especially with a razor, you need to kind of keep it so that it's not drying. If you've ever had your hair cut with a razor and your hair's dried, it can kind of pull and start getting uncomfortable for the client. So you want to always make sure really that the hair's kept damp at least, and that way we can do the cut in comfort. What I'm going to do is position her head down. Now, one of the things that I really like about using the razor, and the one that I'm using, because people always ask, it's about $20. It's from Pivot Point, and you can buy it online. It really is kind of like a nice little designer shape to it. It kind of has this kind of curvature. The one thing that I love about this too is it hasn't got the finger socket, because a lot of times razors have got the little finger holder, and I find that having that finger holder gives you more tension in your wrist, and as hairdressers we have to watch that. We have to watch that we don't get carpal tunnel. So this is one of my favorite razors. So what I'm doing is, from her part, which she has naturally, on her left side going over to her right, I've kept the hair parted. And I want to take you through some of the techniques that I really find work well with razor cutting. One is that you want to keep a nice tension on the hair. So when I'm holding the hair, a lot of times you'll find that, you know, you're holding the hair, you're razor cutting, but some of the hair slips out because the tension between your fingers is usually greater where the knuckles is to where the spaces are either side. So by adding your thumb to that, it adds tension to those two fingers and will hold the hair a lot firmer. So that's number one. Number two is I'm taking a section that's only as wide as what my fingers can hold without over dragging the hair in. So there's no dragging in, because if you drag in, you're going to create a different length. I'm placing the blade just above my fingers and slowly, just to show you, I'm peeling away the top surface of the hair and working through. Now the tension that my fingers are holding the hair is really helping. So if you look at the hair here, it's almost created a little bevel on the edge of the hair. And if you notice on the ends of the hair here that I've got a couple of little pieces that are still slipped out, even though my tension's been very strong. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place my finger underneath, lay my blade across, and very slowly just take those pieces away. And that is the whole heaviest part of the hair, the back section, without subsectioning. And you can see then how fast you can work with a razor and how cleanly you can work with a razor. That's a really nice clean line. It's not a shattered line. It's not kind of, the hair hasn't been heavily worked on to kind of make it look piecey. It's a nice blunt shape. What I kind of always say about a razor is, if you think about it, it's a blade, and a pair of shears are two blades. So really, if you look at the way your hand continues with the razor, it's a lot more natural than having the two blades that a regular pair of scissors have, or a pair of shears. So I kind of actually love using the razor. I think it's one of the things that speed-wise, texture-wise, but also, more importantly, creative-wise, gives you a lot more freedom.
Chris?
Yes,
Thank you. We have a couple questions.
absolutely.
First, they love your bob pre-done, the one that you showed, but
Right.
they're also wondering where you got the razor again.
It's a pivot point razor, the same places a lot of times you'll get mannequins from, you know, because Pivot Point supplies a lot of the schools and educational people around the country. So it's Pivot, P-I-V-O-T, Point, P-O-I-N-T, Pivot Point International. I do believe they've got a website.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then they also wanted to know the website to purchase your guys' irons.
So our CoCre8 irons you'll find on CoCre8, which is C-O-C-R-E, the number 8.biz. So that's CoCre8.biz. C-O-C-R-E8 .biz. Sorry, not at. That's our email.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So I'm really just using the base of her neck as my guide. I'm doing a longer version than my short to long. So the one I did over here, it's on thicker hair, and I did a little higher at the back and lower at the front, which is your option. You know, you can reverse this around and make the front shorter and the back longer if you wanted to. Basically, the outline shape is going to be up to you and your client. I just want to show you the techniques that I use and that I found over the years, kind of the quickest and easiest way to approach hair cutting. Again, keeping her misted because the hair dries out quite quick. Coming to the side now, I'm making sure from the top that I'm not over directing anything from the back or from the front, just combing the hair down in its natural ball. And we're over the ear here. So a lot of times, once I've got the hair and I'm holding it where I want it, what I'll do is I'll tap the hair above and just give myself a little more length or a little more space there, because I'd rather come back and take a bit more off if I need to, rather than having a hole up here. And we all know that's happened before. So again, just going through, cleaning off that end. And take a little more of that. And obviously on a mannequin there is like pretty flat, but on real, you know, real person, that's gonna have that little lift. And now, rather than me pulling this down in front, I'm gonna pull this over to where it's going to sit. So if we're doing a one length bob, the one length bob would actually sit in the place it's naturally going to, holding the hair between my fingers, using my thumb to tighten, going through. And in case you can't see how this is, let me focus in on my face. What I always share in our classes is I get people to take their hand like this. So why don't you all do this with me? Just take your hand like this and go like this on the side of your face and chop in. That's not what we want with the razor. What we want with the razor is a gentle stroke. So it's lift and stroke, lift and stroke. See? I know, silly, but you remember it that way, I'm sure. It always helps me. I see people sometimes on the teaching class, or, you know, people, you know, we've maybe done some kind of training with, and they always kind of say, oh yeah, well, I'm stroking it with the razor. I'm not chopping it. Because who wants to be chopped at? Much prefer to be stroked than chopped. So turning it around, actually, I'm getting a little dry. So if you've all got your glasses and your cups with you, this week I've gone from alcohol to tea, and it's my little Harrods cup from England, seeing as I'm from good old England town. So cheers, everyone. Cheers, John.
Yeah. Hold on.
Just grabbing his.
Cheers.
Cheers, sir. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers,
Happy hour. Nice cup of tea, that is. So, again, making sure that every section that I take is no wider than what I can hold between my fingers. And when I say that, I'm not seeing any hair getting dragged in here, and I'm not seeing any hair getting dragged back. So holding that hair down, lining it up with my last part of the haircut, placing the blade on top, and just gently stroking the top surface, and then working through. Finally, putting the blade on my finger, because I'm using a feather edge blade in here, so it's got a guard on it. You probably don't want to do that if you've got a no guard on your razor, because you'll cut through your finger. It's funny because I used to use straight razors all the time, and then we started teaching a lot of classes on razor cutting and just realized there's a lot of bleeders around, so we don't do that anymore. Finally, going through here and kind of working in, there we go, it's actually better length. Okay, so the big question always is, if you're doing the one length bob, and probably like myself, you've been out at the supermarket, you've stood behind someone in line, and you've seen that someone has parted their hair a little different from the way the hairdresser cut their hair, and they have those long stringy pieces. So I kind of part a hair on this side at this point. If I was doing a one length bob, I'd go quite deep, so it's much deeper than anyone would wear their hair parted, and I would take over the hair from the heavier side to the finer side, where you see where those stringy pieces would be if the client parted the hair in a different way than the hairdresser cut it. And what I'm going to do here is just very gently clean off those edges, so that if the hair parted differently, or the wind blew, which obviously it does, you know, you've got something that will work together on both sides. It also gives flexibility that you can swap the sides. So what we're going to work on now, oh, comb, got a jumping comb, and I'm not even having alcohol, which maybe would have helped. So what I'm going to work on now is getting a nice swing through this front. So we want to kind of go for a curtain bang type effect. And sorry, I'm just being meticulous here and cleaning up a few pieces. There we go. The way to kind of look at that is to see really where you want that to begin on the face. And I mean, some people have the fringe, the short bangs in between having the curtain bangs, which again is something that is popular, but you know, I'm finding as we get into summertime that a lot of people are probably going to not want their hair on their foreheads anyway. So I'm going to do more of a swing effect that can be pulled back. And the way this is going to work is looking at where the final destination is going to hit to begin with. So what I want to do on both sides is look at where is that haircut going to finish. I would say that it's no good really kind of setting off on a journey if you don't know where you're headed. So we're going to head in front of the ear on this side. So kind of like if you look at her hair here as if this is her sideburn, it's just in front of the sideburn. So it'll be finishing really where the hair is finer because of the hairline and the face. And because we're going shorter here, it's going to give the impression that this hair is thicker. Whereas the hair that really is on the ear and at the back, this is obviously twice as thick as this hair, and this is probably 3 times thicker just because the hair grows all the way down to the hairline. So it kind of makes sense that we make this shorter to balance out with the way the back looks. Yeah? Now visually, on the opposite side of her part, you want to also take the hair that is finer. But what I see a lot of people do on this side is that they will take almost as much hair as is on the other side. And if you look at it, this side is really so much less than the opposite side because we have a part going this way. So all the hair that really belongs over here is now sitting over here. So to allow for that, you always want to make sure that the outline shape matches the other side and not the thickness of your parting. I know that kind of sounds simple in a way, but I'm amazed sometimes at how much people take away from this side of their part when they're cutting, and really there isn't a hair to do it on this side. So,
would you say, Chris, that it would be, your end point would be more of like very low temporal, that kind of piece, like where the outline would be?
It's almost like, you know, I was saying about the sideburn. You have the sideburn here, so what I'm doing is I'm kind of tracing down in front of that. So we've got the front hairline,
yeah,
all the way down to right in front of where the sideburn would sit.
Yeah.
And that gives me the end point that I'm going to cut to.
Okay.
So on the journey we're taking, we've now got a final destination on both sides. Yeah? Okay. And that last point on both sides of the haircut is the final destination. The beginning point is where we really want to look at where the hair sits. You know, like if we flash back to the mannequin that I've done over here, and I pull this down, you'll see that I've really done this about lip length. Base of the lip. It's kind of between lip and chin. So when that swings over, it goes up high. Allowing for, I'm also going to add some texture into this. So, you know, even though the lip seems quite long, it may be too long for some people. Her hair's pretty thick and took it. I think in this case, I'm going to go up a little shorter just because the hair is a finer kind of texture. And it's not as, you know, not as bleached out as that one. So therefore, isn't kind of as full or as swollen, really, hair-wise. So the way I like to do this is taking this front section and looking at the back section and giving myself a kind of a visual. And what you can do with that is you can always use your comb, place it on the back section and work it up so you can see what that line would look like. I'm going to go in first and give myself a little starting point here on the top of the lip. And if you notice what I'm doing when I do that, I'm already pointing the blade in the direction that I'm going to cut. I haven't cut a straight line across, because if I did a straight line across, I'd still have to bevel it in. I've done it at an angle that will allow me to then angle down to my back length. So now, if you imagine this is a piece of paper, I've got a dot on the top right corner, I've got a dot on my top left corner, and all I've got to do is draw a straight line between the two of them. That really kind of simplifies and makes sense of the whole process of this front. I see people get really overcomplicated with this, and really the simple thing is point the blade in the direction you want to go in, which is the bottom back corner, and very slowly, like a pen, draw your line between your first dot, top right, and your bottom dot, bottom left. If you imagine it's just like a piece of paper, then you can join those two dots together. So what we in fact have there, short to long. Put my hand in there.
Shirley?
I told you not to call me Shirley. On camera. Okay. So we have a nice sweep all the way through. Now on the opposite side, we want to do a blend. So I'm going to borrow a piece of hair from a part on this side, sweep that across here as a starting point, rather than creating another starting point, we've already got one. So we want those two to marry together, holding the hair directly down. I'm not kind of over-directing forwards, I'm not over-directing out, I'm just holding the hair down. There's my starting point, pointing the blade to my final destination. And if you notice, that final destination just slipped out of my finger. So checking that, and if I need to, I can go in and just clean that corner off. So it really makes the whole process a lot simpler and makes sense, you know, to be able to then do this sweep that works into something soft and allowing the hair from behind to blend into that whilst maintaining that corner of your length. In some cases, on the heavier side, that you have all this hair traveling over here, and sometimes you kind of need to kind of go in here and just blend in that corner. It's just the way it is, because there's so much, like, there's so much more density on this side than there is on the opposite side. So what I've done there is I just continued down and blended in that final corner on this side.
They're saying even at this point, it looks so much thicker already.
Well, that's the optical illusion now is we thickened up the hair at the front because it's shorter. You know, so shorter hair always looks a bit thicker. Where the hair is longer at the back, it's already thicker. So we balanced that look out.
I think to you, what's great about the point with the razor, the blade that you use, is that you've done it as a precision line versus a soft feathery line. So it goes against, it negates what everyone thinks, or so many think the razor is for.
I do think that clients sometimes get scared when you take out the razor. And I think the reason for that is, you know, in the past, they may have had someone that's gone in there and literally shredded the hair to pieces. And if someone's got stringy looking hair, they're not going to come back and get that cut again. But, you know, the way I describe it is the way I describe it to you, is that a pair of scissors or shears are two blades. A razor is just one. So really you can do twice as much damage with a pair of scissors as you can with a razor. It's just how they're handled. You know, if someone goes in and shreds hair with a pair of scissors, then the hair's shredded. You know, so it's just being controlled. It's just being conscious that maybe someone is uncomfortable that you've chosen to use a razor. I just personally love the softness that the razor gives. So a couple of things now. If I was leaving this just the one length with the soft curve through the front, I'll show you what I would do to finish that, because that would be a complete haircut. However, I'm also going to go in here and put some layers. So, you know, it's again, I'm kind of showing you the last part, and that's if we did keep it one length. So there's more than one haircut being shown here. There's several haircuts in this technique. So what I'm going to do is, looking at the part of the hair here that is going to move back, and the part of the hair that could just sit under, yeah? You can see where that naturally kind of falls. Again, just sometimes giving the hair a little push will show you that. What I'm going to share with you is a way of creating a dimension inside the hair that will push the hair in the direction the client wants it to go in, which will make it easier for you to style it and will make it easier for them to style it. Again, kind of speeding up the process. So I'm taking this whole front section, and if you think about it, the hair is moving in this direction, yeah? If we were going to put an iron on it, we'd do that back in that direction. That always helps actually decide on what direction the hair is going to go. So what I'm going to share with you here is a way of going through with my blade and sketching out some really, really fine little pieces on the outside edge of the haircut. So as I'm moving into the haircut, as the haircut gets longer here, I'm moving my blade closer to the end, so that if I started here and worked across, I would be taking out too much from the interior of the haircut, whereas here, what I'm doing is taking out pieces from the perimeter of the haircut. So I'm following the perimeter shape. If I slide my hand out here at this moment in time, you'll see that these little pieces are little tiny, tiny pieces of hair, leaving the hair with spaces cut in between that allows the hair to have a bend to it. Basically, what we've done, we've created a short, too long, a short, too long, a short, too long on the edge of the hair, which is naturally curving the hair in the direction you want to style it. So what we're doing is we're helping the hair have a lightness, a softness, and control on the ends with the way that we've cut the hair, not only on the perimeter, in the outline, but also in the interior shape. So that interior is helping the perimeter push back just naturally.
Love it.
Yeah?
Yeah. Chris, we have a question.
Absolutely.
What would you say to a client if they are like, no, I don't want the razor on my haircut? I'm reading it word for word.
Okay, this is what I've said. And honestly and truthfully, again, hand on the heart, I've used these words. If I give you my guarantee, my promise that you're going to love your hair when I've cut it with the razor. And I will also promise you, and I'll also guarantee you that if you want me to go back through and cut it with the scissors, I will do. Because I think you have to step into that question with, you know, the fact that you know this is going to work, the fact that you know, kind of put your name to this, and the fact that you are willing to go back through and recut the whole hair with scissors if for some reason, you know, the client says, no, I want to cut with scissors. And step into it meaning it rather than just saying it. I think that kind of gives you, then from the client standpoint, they believe because you believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and it changes. I know one thing, and this is just adding, is I call it always a blade, but I call my scissors, shears, I call everything a blade. So like, I'm going to use my blade. So it never has the razor connotation. Word trickery.
I'm going to just mist down again. And if you remember, direction-wise, on this side, obviously, I started on the front and work back, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm holding the hair down, flat. I've got tension on the hair still. I'm using my thumb. So I'm just going to go through and start with the point of my blade, going through and taking out these tiny, tiny little pieces. And again, you know, this hair is quite fine to begin with. So you can see that these pieces, probably it's about a third of the density from the ends, but that third allows the hair just naturally to then fall back away from the face, giving us the curtain bang effect that so many clients are kind of coming in asking for. Sorry. So this also works. I mean, you know, if you have long hair, the only difference would be that final destination would sit somewhere down here, and the angle would be just a little steeper going down to that final length. So this works on longer hair. It works on something that's short at the back, long at the front. You know, it really kind of works on every different length of hair. It's not just this haircut. So I wanted to share that with you because I think it's something that really makes sense. And once you have it in your repertoire of hairdressing, it's something you've got forever and you can use in every different form. And again, we're looking at ways we can kind of speed this up for a client when they're sitting in the chair rather than making it longer. Yeah. So that being said, I'm going to go through and show you the way that I would then, if someone was wanting more volume on the inside, if they're wanting the texture that's more shaken up and piecey, I would approach it this way. It's a little unorthodox in a way, but I think again it makes sense. What I do is I create the outline frame as we have already. I probably wouldn't have textured the front yet because, you know, once we take some of the length away from the inside, this may be finer. So, you know, what I showed you before was to finish off that haircut, which is one on its own. Now to kind of go through and lighten up the texture and give some movement on the inside, my starting point, once I've got the perimeter shape in place, is looking at where the comb naturally lifts off the back of the head, which is the round of the head or the curve. And if you look at that curve, it actually gives us almost like a half moon shape through the back. So what I'm going to do here changing my looking around the camera, is through that curve, I'm going to go through and take a curved pattern that follows the natural shape of the head and that takes in the crown. So when you think about the crown area, this is really halfway point from the nape to the front. So it's a good middle point. We can do it this way, it's easier. Yeah. I think doing it like this is actually a good, you've got the back.
From this angle. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a curve, straight line across the top, curve underneath, like a half moon shape. Once I've got this, I can manipulate this in my hands to see where I think the layers would be great to start. You can see how just kind of working it around, the longer this is, the more layering I'll have on the ends. And the higher this goes, the more it will give me volume in the top part of the head. So, depending on what your final design is going to be, the shorter you go, the more lift you're going to have on the top, and the closer this is going to go underneath, because obviously the start point is shorter, and therefore the hair that's coming off in between is going to be more. Whereas the longer this is, the less hair you're going to take away from the bulk of the hair. And seeing as this hair is finer texture, I'm going to do a little bit of a longer version. So that's taking the hair up. And again, rather than cutting this down, which makes this very blunt, I'm lifting the hair up. I'm then turning my blade in the direction the hair grows. So we're not going against the cuticle of the hair, we're going with it. And creating my inside guide. So now my interior guide is my next dot. You take a look at this, we've got this length, we have this length, those need to be blended together. We have this length, and we have this length, which needs to be blended together. So it's a matter of now blending those dots together around the head. The way that I like to do this is starting at the back, I will go through, take my middle section, middle back, find my interior length, and with my blade, work through that whole section. And this is where sometimes I'll be a little different, because I actually take the blade on top and using the finger that's holding the hair behind, slide through. So going like this and sliding out. Making sure that we have a layer on the inside, layering down to layers on the outside, which, because I haven't cut through my perimeter, can still turn under. But also, if you want to get the movement like we have on the mannequin I showed you before, it's going to create a lightness on the inside of the hair and volume to allow texture. So I'm going to work through on this side, always starting from my middle point, my half moon shape on the crown. If I push that away, you can see that we have the guide there. I'm going to go through and very quickly work through my layers. I'm going all the way down to the perimeter. And if you see, that's kind of my outside corner. So again, on really thick hair, you can take that outside corner off completely. On hair like this, where you want to leave some weight, you can allow that corner to remain, which gives you the weight of the bob shape on the underneath. Again, over the ear, always from the crown. See how I'm always starting from my half moon shape on top. Elevate the hair out. Working through, and blending that together. At a slight angle here, working forward, still picking up my crown. I'm now going into that front section, elevating the hair up, blending through, blending through. And that whole side has now been layered. So you can see how kind of quick that is to do. So just to follow through and to make sure that everyone's kind of got this, see there's no difference on the opposite side. Back to the middle section, picking up my middle section and picking up the section at the side of it, using my middle section as my guide, pulling the hair directly out, finding my interior guide, working through, working through, working through, and allowing that final corner just to drop out of my fingers. So we have the weight there still. Next section behind the ear, going all the way up to the top of the head, finding my half moon shaped crown. Let me pull this around so you can see this from this angle. Pulling the hair directly out, finding my guide on the inside, working through, working through, working through, and allowing that final point to be there on the perimeter. Over the ear, still from Do You Wish sometimes, finding my crown length, which is here. Yeah, okay. Working from the crown, keeping the angle going, making sure that the bottom isn't cut through. Again, making sure I pick up a piece from the crown so I have a starting point. We're now working into the front length, elevating the hair directly up, working from the crown length, working through, and just making sure that that corner is kept. Last section, which is the beginning of a parting, I'm making sure that I pick up from the crown, elevating the hair up, and there really isn't that much hair to cut up here. So if I just give her a little shake, which I'm not sure with this one how that's gonna, you can actually see this kind of texture that we've created on the inside of the hair that now will allow us a lightness in the styling. See how it's kind of giving movement on the inside of the hair? Taking away the weight without anything looking kind of stringy.
Yeah.
Yeah?
You're saying it's just so soft. I think it's a great way that you've created tons of movement and texture without thinning it, shattering it, and it's a simple simplicity of technique.
It also looks thicker, you know? Now this would be the point, if I was doing this as the whole haircut, this would be the point that I would go through and do the personalizing through the front and kind of styling that with my little pointing it out with the blade. So, you know, I don't want to confuse anybody, but I did want to share more than just one look and one haircut. This little bit here, look, and this has just been me, it's still bugging me. So what I'm going to do there, and I think it's because we've still got so much weight on here, and I left that outside corner purposely so we didn't lose that. I'm going to go through with my blade and just find out a few little pieces there so that softness continues. And again, look, little pieces, tiny, tiny, tiny little pieces. This is where you want to make a decision. If this hair's going back, if I carry on in the same direction as I did the front, then this hair is going to push back. So is the client going to wear this hair forward, or is she going to continue wearing it back? Think about it before you do this, because this can really make a big difference. I'm going to do this so this hair is worn forward more. I'm going behind the front section and taking a piece that's going to be shorter, and that short is going to push the long forward. So short, too long, short, too long, short, too long, short, too long. So the pieces that are taken out are now pushing that hair in a forwards direction, and this front hair is going in a backward direction. So what we've done is we've made it easier for this hair to go that way and this hair to move this way. And to be honest with you, a lot of times when people want that stacked effect to the back, where it really has a stack, again, this is a whole other class, but let's get as much as we can out of this. We've got the one length through here, yeah? If you think about a stack bob, it's higher in the middle and lower behind the ears. So what you can do to create that effect is think of a triangle point just below the occipital at the back, and starting behind the ear, go through and slice out little sections that gradually go higher and maybe a little deeper. And this actually works better when the hair length is shorter than this one is. So what we're doing is we're taking out more depth here and then taking out less depth as we get behind the ear. And what that then gives us is a beveling effect of the hair. The hair will actually bevel under. And if the haircut was like around that length, you'd really see this create a stacked effect. You know, if the hair's kind of closer to the hairline in the middle and swing forward, you'll see a really kind of swing bob effect on the hair. However, this is a longer bob and it will still work, but it's not going to be as obvious. So I'm going to start in the middle, take out a higher piece here. Next section is a little lower. And if you notice, my blade is pointing towards the front. The front of her face is here. So what we're doing is we're helping the hair push forward by taking out these slices and then getting a lot lower. So it's high to low, so there's less hair taken out here, more hair taken out the middle. But even on this length hair, you see what that's given us is a really nice kind of soft shakiness that will just lighten up the effect and will allow us to do what I did on the mannequin over here and just have some movement going in the hair. So, I mean, this was straight hair when we began, but now it's allowing some of the natural movement to come out because we gently gone in and lightened the hair to give a nice kind of profile shape.
Yeah, really fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really think those are such great tips, and they were saying thank you. Debbie's just shared that she's purchased an iron set. Well, thank you, Debbie. So sweet. I know you're going to create magical things.
The irons you guys have are awesome. I love them.
Well,
Thanks, Jess.
Well, I mean, yeah, one of the things when we first created those was John was always known for doing color. I was always known for doing cutting in our past life, Gold, Well, and Weller. And we kind of thought pulling those two together, you can't have a finished look without styling, and both of us did styling. So we went through and we chose our favorite irons and really made it into one kit. And the one kit it comes in this little bag, so you can carry them around, you can keep them in your station. But that one kit holds a glove and all 6 different irons and the electric, you know, the actual lead here. So, and again, that iron's been on all that time, and I can still do that and twist this off if I want to, you know, to kind of put a different head on. And they go on really easy. They just slot on and twist. And that's as easy as they are. So thank you for that. I want to kind of just go back to the mannequin here and just show you, now that you know some of the little tricks that I use with the hair cutting, you can see that even on this kind of heavier hair, that, you know, having that softness, like pull this hair out and just finger back comb that up a little bit, you'll see the pieces inside that have been cut a little shorter allowing the outside length to stay there. Those shorter pieces that are on the inside allow the hair then to push back rather than just falling flat. Yeah. Same thing through the sides and same thing through the back, where, you know, people ask this question a lot, so I'll answer it, is, does this effect work with a razor on curly hair? And think about this, curly hair is like a spiral, and the end of curly hair never ends in a club, like a scissor cut, it always ends up in a point. So when you're using the razor and you're going through and slicing through those little baby pieces that are left, it creates that point. So on hair that is curly, it's a great way of reducing down some of the weight so we don't have the pyramid shape. It actually bevels in the corner. Even if it's just the whole perimeter that you kind of go through and slice, you're creating more of a pointed effect to the hair rather than having a clubbed effect. So yes, it works really, really well on curly hair. Okay, wow. I know I can talk. I can really talk.
That was great. It was perfect.
So what I'd like to say.
Really good. Yeah, I think we all got, you know, showing it as a one length and then adding texture and then adding layers. I guess my one question, yeah. I can think of at least 20 people I will use this technique on. But my question is, Chris, if you wanted, you could obviously do this whole haircut with the shears.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a method that we use. I mean, you know, it's like part of the reason we teach classes is really kind of making life a bit simpler in a way, you know, being creative and being artistic, but, you know, simplifying things a little bit so that everyone can follow it, you know? Yes. I think a lot of times you go to a class and you come back with so much stuff that you kind of like, I've got no idea where I'm going with this. So, you know, my point of having the dots on the page can be used with every single haircut you do, you know?
Yes. No, thank you guys so much.
No, it's our pleasure, really, Jesse. Thank you. Thank you to both you and Jen and all of your team. You know, I mean, this is a pleasure. We love having happy hour with you guys.
It's fun. Thank you. So can we plan on next Thursday again?
Oh, yeah, it's a date. And also, we want to give a little shout out, I believe, to this little miss named Kinsley. I think that's inspired a whole new Kinsley, which is fabulous. Oh my, I think we should think about that.
Oh, you guys, look, she's on.
Can you say hi? Hi.
She's on. Oh, Kinsley, come on. Oh, you are adorable. Oh, you make our hearts smile. Oh, but also good on you, lady. You've inspired a whole segment of education yourself.
Forget it.
Yeah. Hold on. So Chris is grabbing our baby real quick. Oh, Kinsey, it's so great to meet you. Are you styling like crazy? Are you doing braids? Yeah. Oh, so major. Oh, I cannot wait for us to meet you live and in person one day.
We will. Oh, this is our baby. Say hello, Alvin.
Oh, hi.
Look at the puppy. Look at the baby.
He's like, what am I doing up here?
He's like,
I was asleep on the couch. I was asleep on the couch. Look at that face, though.
Oh, what a sweet.
Hello. Little Alvin. Here, let me see if Oliver will let me pick him up, say hello. So say, come on, baby. Come on. Oh, I know.
You want to say hi?
Oh, and there's Oliver. The baby. He's clinging on for dear. Bye, Peter. Say hi. Hi, Kingsley. Hi. Oh, the face. The face. All right, so again, a lot of information and you know, definitely more than one haircut in there. If you want to see more of our work, we've got postings. We're going to post, you know, on, we have been posting everything we've done on our CoCre8 page. So it's CoCre8.biz, CoCre8.biz. And we've also got our Facebook page, which is CoCre8 with Christopher Dove and John C. Simpson. So see you there. And if we don't see you before, we'll see you next Thursday. Cheers.
Awesome.
Bravo,
Thank you for everything. That was
Cheers,
great.
guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great
Cheers,
weekend.
guys. You
Why does
too.
it say in England, bottoms up? Cheers.